What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today was a pretty crazy day at the World Championships. So, we're going to go through the matches, talk about what happened, talk about what we thought going into this group before Worlds started, and yeah, that's mostly it. And then we'll look at tomorrow. So I was looking at my video from before everything started in this group, and I did think that Rogue had some chances to get out. I think that we saw the plus 550 was probably a good bet, even though they ended up losing to Cloud9 from a winning position. That kind of stuff is obviously annoying. Our bets for today were Cloud9 to beat Rogue, FPX to beat Cloud9, and Rogue to beat FPX. So Cloud9 to beat Rogue, you got Cloud9 as an underdog when it was basically a coin flip to win the game, so that's pretty good, in my opinion. FPX against Cloud9. Looking back at it, I do think that I should have just been picking Cloud9 because the odds were pretty insane. It was like plus 800 or something like that. I think that was just a mistake on my part. And then Rogue plus 300. That is another good spot. And like I said in my video weeks ago, Rogue has a chance to beat teams like FPX and Dom1 Gaming because their bot lane is probably just better than the other bot lane, or is at least like stylistically different enough where they have winning chances. So there's that. Let's go into the games. FPX against Dom1. I can't bet on this because of New Jersey and the 17-year-old that's on Dom1 Kia's bench. Khan beat Nuggery. Good performance from Khan. Canyon played Poppy, which was kind of surprising. Really good idea from them because you have 3 champions with dashes. Well, four champions with dashes, and then Jin, who can build a dash in Gale Force, which we actually saw happen during the game. And then we had Aurelia against TF. That is a good spot for the Aurelia. I'm surprised that Dom1 went with the TF in that situation, but, you know, Showmaker's a TF player. But Showmaker is a much better TF player than a lot of the other TF players that are at Worlds. Is more consistent in making it actually work. The team plays around it better. And, yeah, just like, he's really good. Showmaker's really good, obviously. And then we had Ghost and Barrel against LWX and Crisp. We had 2 utility AD carries going up against one another, 2 generic supports going up against one another. Dom1 had the better early game. They seemed like they were in control for most of the game. I think they got a couple of kills top lane to start off, and the snowball just didn't stop. Dom1 obviously beat FPX twice in this group, and, you know, it's not that surprising. FPX crashing out is surprising, but, you know, Dom1 having the better jungler, arguably the better mid laner, and then top lane is close enough, bot lane is close enough, you know, you have to give a slight edge to Dom1, I think. So that was game 1. Game 2, we had Cloud9 against Rogue. So we had Graves against Gwen, Lilia against Kiana. I wasn't in my office for this game. I'm not sure why. I forget why. Aurelia against Ryze, and then MF Leona against Draven Braum. I am surprised that the Draven Braum was not enough for Rogue to kind of win through. But apparently the game got out of hand. Blabber's good at Lilia. So there's that. And Perkz had a good game on the Aurelia. I don't know where I was during this game. I might have been at a meeting. This is in my opinion, this is the kind of draft that gives Rogue very good upside against C9, so I really don't think this was a draft issue. It was probably just an execution issue. The fact that teams like Dom1 and FPX are banning out Lucian and Draven tells you all you need to know about this, about Rogue as a team. So even though they didn't make it out of the groups, I think that Rogue, you know, can kind of feel good about the amount of respect they were shown as a competitor. It sucks, but, you know, that's kind of my take on it at this point. Sorry, distracted. Okay. So FPX against Cloud9. So this was one of the most important match. This was the most important match for Cloud9 basically, because this was, well, not the most important. This was their first opportunity to make tiebreakers a realistic scenario. If they lost this game to FPX, I'm pretty sure FPX just automatically qualified, because no one was taking Rogue to beat Damwon, even though it was possible. So Fudge against Nuggery. Fudge has the ability to beat a player like Nuggery in lane depending on what happens in the draft. J4 looked weak once again because there are just a lot of scenarios where the matchup isn't good enough. J4 can't stay on pace with a farming jungler like Xin Zhao without making big plays happen around the map, and FPX wasn't able to do that in the early game. FPX with another questionable mid selection for Doinb. Even if Rumble is a good champion right now, and I'm not sure how good a champion Rumble is right now, even if he is a good champion, I don't want Doinb on Rumble. Like, I know he's a good Rumble player, but there were like 3 or 4 drafts at least that completely hamstrung Doinb and put him in a bad tempo situation where he was always going, or tempo and priority situation where he was always going to be the second person to get to fights, for one reason or another, either the wave being shoved in or just not having the mobility of another champion. Like in this example, Rumble doesn't have the mobility of a TF who can teleport. So okay. Next match. Okay, Damwon against Rogue. Khan against Odoamne. Khan is better than Odoamne. Canyon against Inspired. Canyon's better than Inspired. Showmaker against Larson. Showmaker's better than Larson. And again, this is a spot where if you can take advantage of, if you can use TF the right way, then yes, it's going to look good. The one thing about Canyon and Kiana specifically, like, that champion gives you a lot of pick potential in the mid game, and also it has a huge impact in team fights because that ultimate is just like so broken if you're willing to play around it the right way. If you can if your jungler has good enough tempo, you can push your lane and then follow your jungler whichever side lane they're going to and attack somebody, or you can attack the jungler. But that's I've said this I think in a couple of videos. Just because a champion is picked by multiple teams, it doesn't mean that every team is going to use it the same way. Teams who pick TF and fall flat on their face, it's because they are not as good at that the team play behind a champion like Twisted Fate. They don't understand it to the same level that a team like Damwon does. So even if it's 90% of what Damwon does, the fact that 10% difference is a huge difference maker, and that's why Damwon is so much more consistent right now. I do think that it's going to be punishable by other teams in the quarterfinals. So if we get into a spot where the other mid laner is potentially like very aggressive or can punish a TF in lane, then we would have an opportunity to bet against Damwon Kia, which is probably going to be a plus EV bet. Because we're going to get good odds. Actually, we can't even bet on them because the stupid 17-year-old... Oh my god, that's so annoying. That's really what I want. I want the opportunity to bet against Damwon Kia. Then we have Ghost and Beryl against Hansama and Trimby. So again, this is another respect thing from Damwon. They took away the... I don't know what the order was, but the fact that they drafted Lucian and Draven, that was like their way of saying, we know that you guys play these champions, but if we lock one in first, you're probably not going to take you're probably not going to first rotation the other one, and then we'll get the other one. So like you're using you're taking away some of Hansama's best champions. I think that it was a mistake for Rogue not to pick Lucian or Draven when the opportunity was given to them. But they probably had some other kind of composition in mind. But it didn't work out. And it's like, I don't know. I just guess the Rise doesn't really fit in with what they're trying to accomplish here. I would prefer to have something that punishes the TF harder in lane. It might sound troll, but just how do you think this game could have gone if you had like a Malphite mid? Because if you have Malphite mid, then you can do a pretty good job in the early game of harassing the TF, and even though he's going to have the shove on you, he's not going to have that big of an advantage on the shove. And then you have a Malphite against a Lucian who is going to be negatively impacted by Malphite. You have the same situation with Draven and the same situation with Kiana. So you'd be getting a lot of additional value out of Malphite's ultimate, Malphite's attack speed reduction, Malphite's tankiness, natural tankiness, plus whatever he builds. I know that most people don't want to do stuff like that, and at that point I'd be able to make the argument, you're not really giving Larson the tools to carry the team. But in this kind of draft, I think you're better off having like Hansama be the person that's trying to carry you. Like I think that was their mistake. They should have been trying to put Hansama into a position where they could carry the game, and they didn't do that. So that's basically that. Rogue against FPX. So Odoamne beating Nuguri in lane, that's a matchup thing. Fiddlesticks against the Lee Sin is pretty good. Larson on LeBlanc. LeBlanc's just a good champion against the Sylas. And like at this point, FPX seemed pretty dejected, which was kind of surprising. We need to do the tiebreakers too. Hansama and Shrimby had another good laning phase against a later game combination in the bot lane. So the fact that you have Lucian Nami going up against Aphelios Lulu, like that's a good spot for Rogue. That's what we're looking for. Like we want to be betting on teams like Rogue against when they are the underdogs because of situations like this. And they just had a good game. So good job to Rogue. Damwon against Cloud9. It was funny. I was listening to this game. I was pretty busy at work, so I wasn't watching this game. But I knew that once they had the Kassadin into the TF, it's almost impossible for Cloud9 to beat Damwon fast enough, because Showmaker is one of the best Kassadin players in the world from a mechanical perspective, but also in the ability to get there, like the ability to get to that point in the game, randomly get early kills. Like he's that kind of player. It's like in solo queue when you run into a Kassadin and you type into your like team chat, "Hey, all we need to do is not give kills to Kassadin and we're gonna win this game. Don't let him get to level 16 and we're gonna win this game." Unfortunately, your mid laner inted into him at level 2 somehow, and now Kassadin is ahead of schedule and a huge problem. And then in the bot lane, we had Ghost and Beryl on MF Shen against Kai'Sa Leona. This is the problem with a champion like Kai'Sa, is you're giving up the early game to MF Shen, and then you're trying to end the game before the Kassadin gets out of control. So that's not a good combination of things. Let's move on. In the tiebreakers, we had FPX up against Rogue. This was a spot they drafted the Jarvan. Everybody was like, well, I guess they didn't want to win after all. But Kennen against Jace, we have seen Jace players punish Kennen at points in this, but it's a skill-based matchup, and Rogue did enough to not lose this game. The J4, you really need to continuously apply pressure to FPX. I think that Rogue, it's frustrating to watch Rogue do that because it shows that they had even better opportunities to do it in other games that they completely threw away, like the next game, which they completely threw away. MF Rakan. The Rakan looked really good. I think that Trimby played really well on Rakan. It's one of his best champions. So that's like a good thing to see. The fact that they had a composition with Kennen, Jarvan, MF, Rakan, it's pretty smart because You have the speed boost from Rakan after he builds Shirelia's. It's going to make Kennen more effective. It's going to make Jarvan more effective because it gets him into better positioning for his engages. It helps the Rakan, obviously, because, he uses speed very well. And then, you have the MF and the Sylas kind of just throwing in damage. So, like, a lot of good bullet time opportunities because you punish the enemy team when they don't have their flashes. We saw Jhin get caught out several times. And one of them led to a Baron, I believe. So that's good. And again, this is why you want to put money on teams like Rogue, is because if you think that Hans Sama and Shrimby are good enough to beat LWX and Crisp, then as long as Rogue plays to that win condition, they have chances. Then you need to ask yourself, what is the percent chance that they actually win in that type of game? Like, how often do they do it out of 100? Throw a number on it, convert that into betting odds, and then if you think there's an edge there, bet on it. Next up, Cloud9 against Rogue. So, Fudge against Odoamne. Fudge is better than Odoamne, in my opinion. Blabber against Inspired. Both good players. Perkz against Larson. Perkz is better than Larson. I think it's so funny that people completely forgot that when Perkz was in the LEC, like, he was one of the best players in the LEC. So the fact that people were like shit-talking him because he had like a bad split or whatever, that's why everybody who only focuses on recent performance, they would never be able to bet on something like this. You never would have been able to say, oh yeah, I think that Cloud9 is going to do well today, because you don't have any reason to. Your reasons are all, oh, well, I watched this game a week ago and he didn't look good, so I don't believe in him. When in reality, you need to understand that when a person logs into League of Legends, when a person logs onto League and plays a match, their entire array of outcomes is going to wildly fluctuate based on a lot of other factors, like who their teammates are, what champions are selected, how does the draft go, what does the early game look like. We just expect these players to be able to pull off some things that don't make any sense. Like, if you get put into a bad draft position, the game's going to be harder for you to win, and you will be sometimes placed into unwinnable positions if something goes wrong in the early game. And that's just what happens in League of Legends. I know that we want to think that there's always a good opportunity to come back and forth in a game, but most of the time you're able to get that lead and then kill off the game. The one thing I would say about Rogue in this game is that I do genuinely believe that Rogue should have won this game. And that is an even bigger reason to think that Perkz is an extraordinarily good player, because he was able to utilize the LeBlanc to chip away at the advantage Rogue had established. And instead of going about it from the economic perspective, he was able to create positions. He was able to play positional League of Legends where you're taking advantage of players being out of position. It's in the name. But by picking off champions, giving yourself access to different objectives that are otherwise not feasible because of the material difference between the two teams, that is something that a lot of professional LeBlanc players can do, but Perkz especially can do that. Perkz can carry a game, and we saw him looking for those playmaking opportunities throughout the game, and that's really why Cloud9 was able to win. The other reason why Cloud9 was able to win is because Rogue made a couple of very stupid decisions. Rogue not being more prepared for that Baron fight and not engaging on them before the Baron was taken is a gigantic mistake, because not only does Cloud9 get a lot of gold for just killing Baron and the additional pressure that it puts on the map once you have the buffed up minions, right when you get Baron, you get better combat stats instantly, because there is a buff. The Baron buff gives you combat stats. It used to not be like that. But now, when you acquire the Baron buff, if it's a 50-50 game, those stats do matter. I know that Vedius said, gold doesn't matter at this point. It's a stupid thing to say. It's just not true. Gold doesn't matter in the sense that, like, 95,000 versus 90,000 might be negligible in their opinion. However, the gold that you have spent throughout the game is converted into items should also be considered gold. So once you have all of those items and then you layer Baron buff on top of it, what could have been a negligible difference from like an item perspective or an economic perspective becomes a significant difference, because we're looking to create like a 1% edge. If I told you, like, it's a 51-49 Would you take it? The answer should be most of the time yes, because by making that decision, you probably skew it a little bit more in your favor. And it's probably not 51-49. It's just that's like the absolute minimum that you'd have to convince yourself of to justify the decision. So I do give respect to Cloud9 for winning this game. I do think that Rogue should have won this match. I had my plus 550 on Rogue at the as the potential best LEC team, and if they made it to quarterfinals, I would have had a good chance to win that bet. Now that they lost, it's going to be more difficult. I need Fnatic to not come back to life. I don't think anybody expects them to do that. And then I need Mad Lions to not make it through. So if Mad Lions doesn't make it through and they have a worse record, I win. If Mad Lions doesn't make it through and has the same record, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen on the sportsbook. I don't know what happens if it pushes. I would need to ask Bet365. But that's it for the games. Let's take a look at the lines for tomorrow. Okay, so in the first match, we have EDG against DFM. These are spots where you basically need to ask yourself, am I betting on Detonation Focus Me, yes or no? If yes, then you should bet on all 3 games. If no, then you should fade them probably in all 3 games. By needing to bet the minus 1200, like you're not really doing anything you're not really doing yourself any favors. So if I'm trying to get the pick right, I want EDG. If I'm trying to get a better value for my money, you're probably better off betting on Detonation Focus Me, but you just run it's a larger percent of the time you lose your bet. And that might not make sense to some of you, but if it doesn't make sense, listen to that a few times and it should become more clear what I'm saying. We're looking value for your money means that the implied win rate is not in line with their actual ability to win this match. And it's a best of one. EDG is probably not as EDG is going to play well. I'm not going to try to use that kind of crutch argument. It's unlikely that Detonation Focus Me wins, but I think that you're probably better off getting the money down onto Detonation Focus Me against EDG and against T1 and probably against 100 Thieves. Because we're just looking for one upset. They haven't looked good. I can easily see why somebody would say, I'm done with Detonation Focus Me. They just look completely lost. But they've had a couple of days. Maybe they figured something out in the VOD reviews. Seems unlikely. So like I said, my official pick is EDG because EDG is obviously the overwhelming favorite. But since I have to make a bet on this game, I'm probably going to end up betting on Detonation Focus Me because I want my $20 to have the upside of turning into a lot more than $20. T1 against 100 Thieves. So this is an interesting match from a real life perspective because we've seen it multiple times. T1's drafts are often very difficult to execute. So I wouldn't be surprised if T1 drafts themselves into a corner and then 100 Thieves is able to pull off the upset. This might be another spot where I just bet the underdog. So it's like plus 600, plus 333. I'll probably bet T1 against EDG, so the underdog again. Detonation Focus Me against 100 Thieves. I'd probably bet that one as well. So let's do... So I probably need to win 2 out of these 6 bets if I bet all the underdogs. Yeah. Maybe 3 if it's these two. Let's go to all right. So in their first matchup, we had Graves against Jace. So this is a skill matchup. You can win this as the Jace. Jarvan actually winning. Super sad. I didn't like the Ziggs pick then, and I don't like it now. And again, it's not the most. This isn't as bad as some of their other compositions for engaging, but like, what's your engage plan? Xin Zhao or TF get into the back line. Shen teleports on top of them. Ziggs and Jace are shooting them from a long way away. It's tough. That's tough. And if the other team is engaging on you, you don't have great disengage options. So, kind of sketchy. EDG will be blue side most likely this game. That's not a good thing. We would obviously rather the team that we're betting on to be on the blue side because of champions like Yuumi, the Lucian, and Draven. I do think that those are like 3 very important champions because not only do they give you late game scaling, they also give you pretty good lane presence in the Draven and the Lucian. Kana against Flandre. I prefer Kana. Oner or Owner. I guess it might be Owner, but I say Oner. So Oner against Jai Jai. Kind of a toss-up. Faker against Scout. I prefer Faker. Gumayusi and Keria against Viper and Mako. I don't know. I think Viper's better than Gumayusi. I think Keria is better than Mako. So it's kind of a toss-up. And again, that means it comes down to draft. If this game is going to come down to draft, I think I'm going to end up on T1 either way because I'm getting the additional value for my money. And I think that it's basically a coin flip. If you get a good draft from T1, I think that it's probably more likely that that T1 wins. Like not meaning that they get a draft advantage, but if the draft is good enough from like an engaged perspective and they're not trying to play the game on hard mode like they seemingly do. Next up, 100 Thieves against Detonation Focus Me. So that was this game. Someday is better than Eevee. I think that's become pretty clear during this tournament. Lee Sin against Viego is fine. The Lucian Nami looks very strong. Man, I feel like Detonation Focus Me has to be able to pull off an upset over 100 Thieves. It's not that I think that they're going to. It's that at plus 200, it's like 30% or whatever. So, can they win 30% of the time? I think the answer is yes. Yeah, 1.5 out of 5 games. That seems very reasonable to me. Actually, I guess that would be like the line. I think I'm just betting underdogs here. Maybe it's better to go against that because we had a crazy day today. It's not that those two things have anything to do with one another. It's just I want to make sure I'm not just being overly optimistic with underdogs because of what happened today. That's another important thing to ask yourself just to make sure you're making decisions for the right reasons. Okay, so that's that. T1 against Detonation Focus Me. Again, if you make this bet, it's because of the line, not because of like, oh, Detonation Focus Me should be able to beat T1 this one specific way. So just, that's I think I'm kind of repeating myself a little too much at this point. And then EDG against 100 Thieves. That's going to be a tough one to pull the trigger on, but I feel like I kind of have to. So yeah, I think I might honestly bet all 6 underdogs and just see what happens. That's basically it. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to check out my Patreon and Discord. If you want to support the esportsdepartment.com where I do the Infinity Edge podcast, check out the esportsdepartment.com/donate. Any donations are split among everyone equally. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.